Music makes the people come together. I'm Yulia Graham, and on this channel I talk about anything I want to talk about with perfume as the background. And today I want to talk about music. If you are with me, then that makes you my scent brother, my scent sister, and my non-binary scent sibling. And if you're interested in different types of music that I associate with different scents, hang out. We listen to different kinds of music in the background. That's what I do. I've always got music in the background, music in my head, and this is a perfume channel, but I use perfume to have community with you and to talk to you about perfume and life. And so that's what we're here for today. You saw the thumbnail, you've seen the different types of music and the different types of perfume. So I'm just gonna go through a normal day in my mind and tell you about which of my scents fits with the music of my life. And it's a little insight into me because music is a very important part of our life, my husband's and my life. Let's start. In the morning on my way to work, when I'm not filming a YouTube video, which these days is quite rare, I listen to classical music. I have Sirius XM. It's been a while. My husband just renewed it for me for my birthday, and so it's been a while since I've been listening to classical music. But I love listening to classical music in the morning. It cleanses me. It gives me a sense of peace. Even when the music is very, very loud or fun or whatever it is, that there's a lot of different genres within the genre of classical music, and I'm no expert. My husband's the expert. My friend Andreas is the expert. I'm not an expert. I just really, really enjoy classical music. And so, depending on the time of year, of course, but to me, my classical music is always my Chanel. And that is an association that I make that I'm going to stand by. When I am listening to classical music, what comes to mind for me is Chanel. What comes to mind for you? So, specifically to me, when I hear classical music with the violins and the strings and the winds, I think of class, I think of timelessness, I think of opulence. I think classical music evokes in me a feeling of bougie. To me, classical music is bougie, and I don't know why. And so my scent that I would say in my collection represents that is the Chanel's. And so let's talk about one I rarely talk about. I have Chanel Coco Noir, and it is a deep scent, but not dark. It has a lovely citrus. It has that DNA of a Chanel, and it's absolutely lovely. I also have Coco Mademoiselle and its flanker, Coco Mademoiselle Au Intense. They are all fruity in the opening with the citrus, and then florals, often white florals in the mid, and then the bases got honey. The bases got musks, patchouli for sure, and they're all similar in that they all share. There's this aldehydic thing going on with the Chanel, but they're also very different, and you would wear them at different times. So, for example, I don't wear Coco Mademoiselle if it's cold out. I only wear that in the heat. I don't wear the Au Intense when it's hot, and I don't wear the Noir during the day, even though you could. It's a very light, fresh scent. That's what I pair classical music with, is my Chanel. What do you pair classical music with? Do you have either a house that you associate with with classical music? Is it a certain scent? For me, it's the house of Chanel. When I think of classical music, I think of Chanel. This is the absolute truth. I'm not making this up just to make a video. People who know me can chime in. The TV in our home is only there there to play music 90% of the time. When I am cleaning our home during the week, it's during the day, the 70s channel is what's on. That's what's on, and that's what I listen to. So I'm not saying that these are scents that I associate with cleaning my house, because I have those. Do you have scents where you just use to clean the house? I do have those, and I've spoken about them before. But I listen to the 70s. It's nostalgic without being traumatic. It's not so close to me, that 70s era with, say, Janis Joplin and, oh my gosh, Leonard Cohen. I'll scroll down here, some of my favorites. Simon and Garfunkel. Oh my gosh, Barry White, Donna Summer, all the disco, the folk. The 70s were super eclectic. Every era is super eclectic, but the 70s to me have so much going on, and I really do listen to the 70s during the day when I'm cleaning. And I'm thinking about my collection and the 70s music and what that means to me. It means patchouli to me. It means a free spirit. It means flowers and freedom and Joni Mitchell and long hair and just a little bit of something something. If I had to pick a scent out of my scent collection right now to talk to you about the 70s, it would be Florabotanica. It would totally be Florabotanica by Balenciaga. And not because there's a cannabis note, although not because it's got a cannabis note. To me, it is floral. I'm not a floral person, but to me, the 70s were about florals, and that's it. That is my explanation for why Florabotanica would be my scent for the 70s. It is unabashedly floral, and it's not very serious, and it's not for everyone. The 70s are not for everyone, and Florabotanica is not for everyone. I had a huge issue with it at first, and my husband still doesn't like it to this day. But it's in your face, it's bold, it's of a certain style. Even the bottle is of a certain style. And so to me, the 70s, if I had to look at all my bottle babies and say this one is this and that, the 70s, that's Florabotanica by Balenciaga. When we have people over, we do this game. It's terrible. It's terrible, and I'll tell you why, because I know I'm going to win. When we have people over who are our age, we turn on the not the Sirius satellite radio, what's it called? The Bell satellite. And you can get the music channels, and we put it on the 80s, and I should record it. It's kind of a weird thing, but I can usually tell you the name of a song from a second clip. 1 second, and I know it. The 80s were my jam. Veronica Says, quite possibly the loveliest human being, never mind YouTuber. She does an entire series about her 80s perfumes. And those are perfumes from the 80s she's talking about. She's literally talking about perfumes that she has that are from the 80s. I'm not doing that. I don't have any perfumes from the 80s, I don't think. But I'm just talking about, but I listen to the 80s a lot, and if I had to choose something out of my collection that I would say epitomize the 80s, even if it wasn't around then, I would say, so what are the 80s about? The 80s were about the individual. The 80s were about expressing yourself. The 80s music was about the great British bands. The 80s were about one-sided hair and safety pins and punk. The cusp of the 80s from the 70s, everything was on your radio. There was a lot of country, there was still a lot of soul, there was rock and roll, there was punk, there was everybody from John Cougar, Mellencamp. I could spend forever on the 80s. Anyway, the 80s were about expressing individual freedom, and in a way that was new. We were coming out of the 70s and out of everybody being either this way or that way. In the 80s, you could be anything or anybody. Freedoms were becoming the thing. There was just a sense of waking up in the 80s and realizing that we were all different. And so for me, a scent that's really says the 80s to me in terms of like, I'm an individual. You're not gonna believe what I'm gonna say. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying that the 80s has anything to do with this perfume, but it's what I think of when I think of this perfume. And to me, my 80s scent is Baccarat Rouge 540. There's something so different about it. Something so FU. There are lots of dupes and things that have been inspired by Baccarat Rouge 540. There's nothing particularly 80s about the way it smells. I mean, what were we wearing in the 80s? We were wearing Calvin Klein, and we were wearing Exclamation. Did you? Yeah. And so there's nothing particularly Calvin Klein-y or Exclamation-y about the Baccarat Rouge 540, but to me, it's like the music in the 80s. It was everything. It was a little bit sweet and a little bit deep and a little bit him and a little bit her and a little bit offensive and a little bit gentle, and it was just a little bit of everything. And to me, Baccarat Rouge 540 is all of those things. The notes don't speak for the scent, they never do. So Baccarat Rouge 540, I get the medicinal note people are talking about, and I think it has to do with the resins or the fur. If you don't know what it smells like, on me it leans quite masculine, and that's from the resins. I think there's a note of fur or some kind of coniferous resin. To me, the oil perfumery version smells quite a bit sweeter. But having said all of that, the 80s music. We went from Flock of Seagulls, Dolly Parton, let's go. What else you got? Name me some 80s stuff down there. It makes my heart sing. In the 80s formed me and who I am. And for me, the scent that encapsulates all of the different things that the 80s had held for me, that's the one I'm going to go with, is Baccarat Rouge 540. You know by now that music is a huge part of my life, and scent is a huge part of my life, and my YouTube channel is all about talking to you about perfume, but how it works in my life and what it does for me and with me. And in this particular video, I am talking about the types of music that I listen to and what kinds of scents they make me think of. That's all. It's fun. It's just a fun, entertaining kind of way to spend time with you while I drive home with really bad hair and it's raining outside. Regardless, the other type of music that is a huge part of my life with my husband is the jukebox oldies. We're talking the Supremes, we're talking Marvin Gaye, we're talking Sam Cooke. Oh my gosh, all of the most amazing jukebox music. Bale Haley in the comments. I'll stream some stuff down here, just a little bit of it. The 1, 2, 3 o'clock happy days kind of music is always playing on Sundays. That's our Sunday music. And the music itself, again, it's so eclectic. Every era is eclectic. In the 50s and 60s, which is mostly what we're talking about when we talk about the jukebox era, you have gospel still. Michael Rowe, the Boat Ashore, I'm looking at you. We have a lot of Tina Turner and a lot of music by people who weren't even allowed to go into the clubs that they were playing in. There was so much inequality, there was so much bullshit when it came to that time in could entertain you, they were not able to access that entertainment. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about music that evokes that sense of innocence on the one hand, but you know when the Beatles were singing about please, please me, like I please you, there was a lot going on in the 50s and 60s. Our parents were doing it. Let's not even pretend they weren't doing it. There was a lot of pent up stuff going on in the 60s and 50s, but they looked so innocent, and the music had this innocence to it. If you listen to some of the words, they got it on. And so to me, the 50s and 60s were like this repressed sexiness in the music, in the fashion, just in general. People were pretty, there was like what you saw and what you get were two different things. And so when I think of 50s and 60s music and what I have in my collection that would remind me of that kind of innocence, but also that kind of seething sexuality underneath it, I'm just going to go ahead and say something, talk about something that I haven't talked about very much, and it's Ganymede by Marc-Antoine Balenciaga. I happen to know that the perfumer is Quentin Biche, my Paris boyfriend. There's something so amazing about Ganymede, the way the notes come together, the immortelle flower with leather, the leather jackets, Fonzie, that's a show from the 70s and 80s, but it took place in the 50s, 1957 Milwaukee to be exact. Ooh. Lots of bumps. And so to me, there's a duality in that scent whereby it's extremely beautiful and innocent. It's got this beautiful lightness to it, but then that leather comes in and makes it absolutely sexy. What can I say? There's not a lot of love for Ganymede on YouTube. There's a lot of love for it on Instagram. If you're joining me and you're one of my Instagram scent siblings, hello, welcome, thank you. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us about Ganymede and your experience with it. To me, Ganymede is the 50s and 60s. There's something very innocent about it, and yet there's something underneath it. It's the most beautiful leather-centric scent. I only wear it. I'm going to make a video about super specific situations where I wear perfume, and I'm going to tag Claire Smith in it. But I only wear it when I'm wearing faux leather. That's Ganymede by Marc-Antoine Baccarat. It is a warm, floral, leather scent that does something to me. That's the 50s and 60s. It does something to me. We're in my driveway because I'm home, and I just want to do the last one really, really quickly so that there's no discontinuity between me driving in my car and bringing you these pairings of music and scent. So we listen to jazz in the evening, channel 924 on the Bell satellite, and that is the music to which we cook. It's the music to which we drink our wine. It is the music of our life. And when something is bothering one of us, when we are unsure of what's going on, sort of like why a mood isn't right, if it's after 3 o'clock, then our channel 924 goes on. Somebody chops an onion, somebody pours a glass of wine, somebody makes a sauce. We get together. This music is what connects my husband and me, and it's jazz, and it's standards, and it's a lot of Miles Davis, and it's a lot of Arnold Schoenberg, and Etta James and Billie Holiday, that style of music. When I think of that, I think of comfort. When I think of that style of music, jazz, there's only one. There can be only one. And that style of music to me represents my home life, my life in the kitchen with my husband. It represents all things good to me because it's after 3, work is done, we're planning the meal, we're doing the thing. The music comes on and it's that smooth saxophone, it's that smooth voice. There's something insanely sexy about that type of music, and there's only one perfume that really comes to mind, and that is, do you know what I'm gonna say? It's Intense Café by Montale. I love that scent. It's so sophisticated to me, to my nose. I know that not everybody loves that scent. I know it's way too much of a beast for some people. It's a Intense Café. To me, I don't smell the coffee, but I get something rich and warm, and the rose in there is, it's not offensive. I'm not a rose kind of gal, but that's what I get is a beautiful floral with some vanilla and some gourmandy notes in there. And when you've got jazz playing, that's where I'm at. I know some people would probably say jazz club, you know, that's the obvious pairing there, but not to me. First of all, because I don't love it. Somebody's gonna come for me. But secondly, because out of my bottle babies, Intense Café is the only one when I've got the jazz going. That saxophone, the clarinet, that sexy, swanky kind of sound. There's nothing like it for me, and it's a huge, huge, huge part of my life. And Intense Café, or as Ryan calls it, Anton's Cafe, that's what brings it to mind. Do you have specific music that evokes some kind of feeling in you, and you can pair that with a scent? So for example, my classical music in Chanel, like, are you like us? Do you have specific music for different things in your life? So for example, on Saturdays, I clean the house to the 70s, but on Sundays it's the 50s and 60s, but after 3 o'clock it's the jazz. If you have specific music that you listen to during specific times, leave me a note in the comments, and better yet, if you can give me a scent that reminds you of that. I don't know why I have Kylie Minogue on my brain, but like, if Kylie Minogue is something that means something to you, what would you, not scent the person, but the music and when and why you listen. That's what this video has been about. Just me talking to you on my way home, because I'm Yulia Graham and I'm your scent sister. And if you're watching this, you're my scent brother, scent sister, or my non-binary scent sibling. Thank you for taking this musical journey with me. It's going to get copyright struck, I am sure, but that's okay. I wanted to talk to you about perfume in the background with music in the foreground, and just hang out with you because that's what I like to do. We will see you in the next one. Mwah, 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 mwah. I'm gonna go, it's 20 after 4, so I'm gonna go and turn on the jazz and chop an onion, pour a glass of wine. I'm gonna go put on some Intense Café.